It is a beautiful day and a perfect day for the East and the West to come together. And here we are. I am Danny Rocco with my co-host, Mike Flynn. Mike, how are you doing today?
It's really cool to be here with our guest today.
It's a very special guest, Dr. Bob. I'm very excited. Dr. Bob, tell the world a little bit about who you are.
Yeah, quick story. So I've been a doctor of acupuncture for about 25 years, but within that 25 years, I've studied in Germany, Russia, all over the place. So I'm pretty good at like assessing systems and how they function, and I created my own system. So when people just think of acupuncture, they go, oh, it's just acupuncture. Well, if we were to study acupuncture, you start looking at like functional MRIs, you'd see the whole brain go into a whole nother category that people are like, oh my gosh, how could this be? It's almost like training for the body, mind, and spirit, but people don't know that because they don't see it. And I've worked a lot with athletes over the years, so it's a quick feedback loop where I can get them to perform better, function better, and I'll do all these different things. But for me, everybody's an athlete. So any person that I see, it's doing a thorough history, checking them out, and like, how can we make you better? Just not like keep you normal. So I always want to go beyond. I always want to go beyond your normal. You might want to say in German, like Uber health, like super health, or like being like tapped in. That's where I like to hang out.
Okay, Danny's got a question. Danny's got a question to open it. Go ahead.
Yes. Well, first I have to say we all know, the fan base knows that Mike is quite the athlete, and he sees you. So I just got to put that out there because everyone likes a good story about Mike every now and then. But Dr. Bob, so you're an acupuncturist.
Well, real quick story on Mike. You know his nickname, right? You know his nickname. White Lightning. This guy's got speed, man. Even though he's X amount of years old, he's still got some gusto in there, man. So his nickname is White Lightning. When they see him running on the track, they're like, that must be White Lightning.
And the legend continues. Till next time. But as far as Dr. Bob goes, so you're an acupuncturist, you're an energy doctor, and a slew of other, alternative medicines. What attracted you to alternative medicine instead of the traditional medicine?
I had a great advisor back in undergraduate school said, Robert, you're not going to like traditional medicine because it's all about death. You're all about life. You're not going to study ways or look at ways to help people get better. You're just going to maintain the system. And I was like, Dr. Morris, wow, that's interesting. So him and I did an independent study on how people have healed throughout time. He goes, hey, just because science doesn't say it works doesn't mean it works. It still works. Yeah. That's where we got into it. So then he had me go talk to a bunch of doctors and like, hey, kid, don't do it. Like, it's all about managed care. It's not about helping people. And I was like, do these guys sell out? Like, what's going on, man? And then one of the doctors said, go see this old Chinese doctor. So I go see him, and he goes, before I even said any words, he goes, in ancient China, the doctor would pay if you got sick. We had to listen to him. And he goes, you heard me right. And I went, whoa, that's a real system right there. They really care about you. So think about if our healthcare system is based off of that versus the other way around. You usually get reimbursed or you get coverage for being sick. You don't get it for being healthy. All you hear about healthy is this: not bad for your age. So I golf at that. I hate that. People say that crap. I go, are you kidding me?
It's interesting. You focus largely on athletes. Why is that?
Well, people think so, but it's not always just athletes. That's like the big name. Like, we treat all these teams. My main practice is people, but they're kind of like more like CEOs and people that are kind of looking for edges. But any people I'll treat. I've also studied pediatric acupuncture in England a number of years ago, 20 years ago, so I learned a lot from that. So what occurs to you in younger life occurs to you in later life. You don't clear it out. It's still there.
But the athletes are part of your big name. You focus on them. How'd you begin doing that?
Well, I was a former athlete myself in college and such, and when I was in acupuncture school, I started treating myself, and I had these experiences where I'd be like, they're like, hey, man, you just played a game of basketball, you made 16 shots, you only missed 2, and I was like, wow. Then I started looking at, I was probably the first guy ever to look at all the acupuncture points from a point of view of sports, going like, how can you help performance? But not only like I can jump higher, lift more, but how do I like tap into that flow state? So I did that. I had a mentor who used to work at a black and blue clinic for a high school team. He asked me to do that, and I said, well, hey, Jim, I got these points to do for performance. He's like, come on, man, what are you talking about? The first game, true story, the guy has 6 touchdowns. They're like, holy shit, like, what, are you kidding me?
Well,
that's what all started.
Well, they always say the secret is you have a skill, and then the secret of it is you show that it works.
Yeah. Oh, so my whole deal is that it's real. Like, I can tell you something. It doesn't matter if I tell you something. What do you feel or notice? That's what really matters. So anybody can talk a good game. Like, oh, I wrote a book about this. Well, maybe that's like 2% of the population get it, but every person I treat, I'll give you an example. Like, say if you have a headache, right? I never met your headache. I don't know where your headache is. I got to figure out why you have the headache. It's just not a headache. It's just not that. So once you get into the deal of this, it's really beautiful because you look at people from like a point of view of like roots and branches. What's going on?
Right. And
as a practitioner, you have like an artistic skill. Everybody has skills.
Yeah. So, okay. So are you a fan of drugs? Are you not a fan of drugs?
Not a fan of drugs, man. I want to stay as far away as I can possibly. I was not born having a drug deficiency. Someone made that up. I'd rather go to a natural substance. But with acupuncture, your own body has something called the endocannabinoid system, which people never heard of. They go, what? It's a 600 million-year-old system, only discovered in 1995. That's in all vertebrates. And that deals
we're going to get into that in a little bit. Don't steal the show, Dr. Bob. Don't steal the show.
You got me going, man. I'm just like live Mike. I'm just saying, man.
You can feel the energy. I think I've met my match when it's energy. Usually, if I'm quiet, people are like, "What is wrong with you?" And I'm like, "I can be quiet and just take things in." Dr. Bob, I think we have a challenge here, me and you.
Well, but note though, when you get enthusiastic about what you do, it carries you through to another level. And I'm not trying. I'm just that way. I'm not like I gotta like fire myself up. We're just tapped in. Different things.
One of the things, back to what you actually touch base on, you advise people to focus on what you feel rather than what you think. Explain that.
Well, a lot of people come in with, say, an issue, and they'll be like, oh, I have this issue. I'm like, okay, what do you feel, just not the issue? They put it in a category. I have X. Oh, great. Okay, it's great you have X, but what about the rest of your body? What do you feel? Like, people get stuck in a box. It's like part of their brains go to this amygdala, hippocampus, and limbic brain, and they get stuck up in it. They just stay in this emotional realm of that. They don't feel their lives. We're too much up in our heads in thought. We're like thought forms. Everyone's thinking all the time. What do you feel? Feel.
So it's kind of like if you thought, oh, I have this headache because I have X, Y, Z that's happened to me, so then you actually create the headache instead of feeling in the moment and living your life. You might realize that headache doesn't exist. Is that true?
Yes and no, but I'm more curious about. So for what I do, it's like you can have 6 forms of headaches. Wherever it is on your body means something to me. I'm curious. So why do you have it? Is it an acute thing? Is it a chronic thing? There's all kinds of different levels of that. But when you start to feel your body in certain ways, like most people get up like, oh, I feel whatever. I'm like, why do you go to a default of negativity? So there's a thing called in the brain called the default mode network, discovered in 1995, that people in MRIs where just by accident they're sitting there and they're like, these are some weird readings. What is this? So the default mode network is kind of like your default of your consciousness. So if I'm always in a negative state, my default's always negative, right? So my other studies, most people have, it's weird to say, 9 negative thoughts and 1 positive. Now how can that be? Like if I'm having 9 negative thoughts, are you serious? Or you're worried about something? It doesn't make any sense.
No, it doesn't. Well, I got to tell you, we have a live stream going, and Oscar is totally agreeing with you. He's loving it out there. And then all the way from Tennessee, he's my Marine veteran buddy. And then Travis just popped in. I want to talk about Travis. Travis is a Marine veteran out of Boston. He said, one thing I was told is most headaches are the result of dehydration. People don't drink enough water. Is that true, Dr. Bob?
It can be. It can also be water and magnesium. But you have to understand, why do you have the headache? Always do a history. Like, hey, I haven't had water. What's our body made up of? Water and minerals, right? They go together.
So one without the other. All right. So you've talked about the importance of teaching the brain to slow down. Okay, how do you do that? What does that look like? And then why is that so important?
So do this with me.
How do you do it? How do you do it?
You guys do this with me. Watch. Hold your right nostril. Close your mouth.
Right.
Breathe through your left nostril. You don't tell me you didn't already relax, right? Come on, tell me. Be honest. Whew, it's that simple.
Simple resource, simple tool. That's all you got to do. It just stops you. Is it because you're focusing on breathing? It's taking you out of your rhythm? Why is that?
Again, view it like this. We don't see our breath, right? Things that humans don't see, we have a hard time with. We take it for automatic. So when I do this, I create a pump. Everything's closed. My left side of my body has 2 lobes of my heart. Right side has 3 lobes. So when I do this, my body goes into a parasympathetic state. It has to relax. So I tell people do this 5 times a day for 5 minutes. It'll change your life. Simple.
I've begun trying to remember to do that.
It's a challenge, Travis. It's a challenge.
Hey,
well, I have a better term for instead of challenge. Just connect into it. I hate the term like work. I got to work hard. Just connect. When you connect, it's easy. I got to work, and all these words we use, it's weird. Connect. It's easy.
Connect with yourself, Travis.
Yes, Travis. Go Vols in Tennessee, by the way.
I've touched base with the impact you have on a far-flung group of athletes. I was waiting at your office one day last fall to get some acupuncture treatment. Hurt my leg. And I'm standing there waiting for you to come back, and a big guy from wearing a Buffalo Bills jacket came up. And I said, so what are you doing here? Waiting for Dr. Bob? And he said, yeah. I said, so what's with the Buffalo Bills jacket? He said, oh, I'm first starting tackle for the Bills, but I hurt my knee, and my agent told me to come see this guy in Seattle. And I thought, well, that's pretty indication of how far-flung the awareness of you is. And you work with the Jacksonville Jaguars before they were going into the Super Bowl.
They didn't make it to the Super Bowl. That's a bad story. They only got to the AFC Championship, and they got beat by the Patriots because I think their coaching staff messed up. But I remember that gentleman. He was huge. That's a big dude that came, man. He was like 6'7", like 330.
Yeah.
Big dude, man.
But well, I'm just saying, that is how far your tentacles reach. People going all the way to Seattle to get some Dr. Bob.
Yeah, I get people that come over from Europe, or used to before this COVID thing hit too. So one thing about me, I'm not like a marketer. So people, it's always word of mouth, man. I'm too busy having fun figuring out new stuff, and I'm not a marketer guy per se, but that's part of the deal.
That is. So do you get pushback from the conventional medicine world, especially when you're working with the sports team? And maybe if you do, if you don't, I don't know, but I'm just saying maybe if you do a little bit, it's because they just don't understand.
Well, to be honest, I really don't care because I'm doing something different. You guys do what you do. I'm going to do what I do. And they merge together. And I always want to have and I'm kind of like, so people think acupuncture. I do like space technologies. I got stuff that from a Western point of view, you kind of go, wow, that's some cool stuff. But people just don't hear about it because no one's doing it. So when I meet with people, I'm like, listen, you experience what you experience. So, for example, when I first met the Buffalo Bills, the coach he brought down some of the offensive linemen and said, hey, treat these guys. So he calls me back like an hour later. He goes, hey, man, did you tell those guys that you're going to pay them some money to tell them what they told me? I said, Coach, what are you talking about? He goes, they said it was crazy. They couldn't believe it because it's something you haven't experienced. So I could talk to you all day about it, but unless you experience, you're not going to know what it is. So when people have it, that's what they feel. They're kind of like, they feel quicker, they feel faster, they feel lighter in their head.
And that's certainly going to threaten the traditional medical people who work with athletic teams.
Well, I don't even think that, man. When I treat people, I'm like in my own, like I have like my own little corridor. Like those guys can do whatever. They can talk to me if they want to. But when I first worked with the team, the Milwaukee Bucks, like in 1997, I'd walk in the room and everyone would walk out, all the doctors. But then once in a while, they'd be like, hey kid, hey man, can you help out my knee? And I'll be like, what now? You're talking to me now? Like, come on, man.
Well, but the fact is, until they get over being threatened by you, it's going to be difficult for athletic teams to say, yeah, we've just added them to our routine for people.
Well, yes and no. I'll also say this, that if I were to say I just focus on performance, I'm doing something different. So I'm not like I have to heal or treat people. I want to focus on performance, but do it like this. Your healing is a form of performance. So if I come in there and say, hey, I'm a performance guy, they're like, oh, that's different. That's what I tell people. When I say acupuncture, it's like an open-ended, like, what does that mean? People have no idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I always say the proof's in the pudding, man. When you get a treatment, people are like, wow, I feel that, or you perform better.
But I just want to clarify, you just don't work with, like you said, athletes? I mean, that is obviously a heightened, because it's a measurable thing. It's a team. They can see the measure per team, like when you work on them with, per the game, and then when you don't work with them on a game, but like a regular Joe like myself.
Yes, without a doubt.
I always want to be at my heightened level.
And then how can I make that average Joe of you like get a little bit more like Super Joe? Like, because everybody has little components or little keys about themselves maybe they don't know that can make you better. For a lot of people, they stay in reactionary states where they just react to the same stuff. So look at that term, reaction. They just react in these same realms. Once you get out of that, man, you can get better. And I also ask you, what do you do for creativity? What do you do to kind of like tap into some other stuff?
One of the things I'm intrigued at is your mantra, because I hear you say it a lot, is to learn to let go of things and understand that less is better. That's contrary to most people's view of everything.
Well, yeah, because people think they need to work harder, and that's why I use that term connect. So I think I was working on the team once, and this guy's like, you know what you are, man? You're like Wi-Fi. You're not like dial-up. And so if you think of needles, they're like little antenna, right? They're tapping into things. So you're in this Wi-Fi, and we have this belief that you have to work harder to succeed. I'll say yes, maybe. It's more about what you do that taps you in to get you there. So that's what people call flow state. So if I'm really, really ultra tapped in, things slow down. I'm just tapped in, man. Life becomes easier. And breathing can help you get there. I can do other things that help you get there.
So that's what less is better.
Yeah, or Mike, the way we kind of train, right? Like we do a certain form of HIIT training where 15 minutes once a week, you get stronger. And people are like, well, that doesn't make any sense. Because you never tried it. Once you try it, you're like, oh my gosh. So I'm good at like, people have a term like hacking, you're like biohackers or whatever. So I'll go work out, then I'll go treat myself, and I get like a double dose of getting better.
Is it harder to treat yourself than somebody else?
No, it's easy.
Okay. Easier?
Yeah, because I know myself. I mean, if I'm true to myself, I know how my body functions, and I can also experiment on myself.
All right. Mike, you were going to ask him about some sort of system. You didn't want him to get into it. The endocannabinoid system?
Endocannabinoid system, ECS?
I know.
Yeah.
And that relates to cannabinoid.
Yeah, see that right there? The endocannabinoid system, I have a big chart of it, man. I have it right by me. It's like a think tank. But it gets into cannabis, but it's not cannabis. It's a system that was discovered in about 1995. It's 600 million years old. There's all vertebrates, and it has receptors in the brain and parts of the body. I personally believe it's part of the acupuncture system. People just haven't studied that enough. So when you do certain things, like people think, I'm not a marijuana fan. Never smoked in my life because it leaves a residue in your system that needs to be cleared out. So if people want to be entrepreneurs, let's create a weed detox. It would help a bunch of people in the world. But the endocannabinoid system causes your system to relax. So another question I ask people is like, how do you nurture yourself? So Danny, how do you nurture yourself?
Good question.
Well, people always tell me, you tell me, and I'll see if you say what they always tell me.
How do I nurture myself? I actually, that's a really hard question, Dr. Bob.
Yes.
Like, not going to someplace else to relax.
Okay. People always tell me like, oh, I eat well. I'm like, no, that's not it.
Yeah.
I have to tell you how I nurture myself. I nurture myself by getting close to Dr. Bob, to our mutual high-intensity trainer, people who have ideas that never occurred to me until you meet them and listen and say, holy smoke, there's a different world out there.
So I like that. For me, like meditation is a form of like how do you nurture yourself, breathing, taking time in nature. I don't know if you guys know about forest bathing, the premise of that. Like studies now show us when you walk in nature, your whole body changes. So if you just go to nature, you're nurturing yourself. I didn't have to work out. I didn't have to train. I'm being nurtured. I could smell something. I'm being nurtured. Look at a beautiful portrait. You're nurtured. Those are things that your system loves to have, but we don't talk about it.
That's very interesting, isn't it?
People always want to sell you stuff. Take this, do this. And I'm like, for what? You could, I mean, I'm making this up. You can make up a product of poop and market it and say it was good.
So is a form of, I guess the form of my nature is like at night and in the morning, and then sometimes throughout the day, but definitely before I go to bed and before I wake up, I kind of do like my own meditation or praying how I want my day to be, how I want to feel, what like just loving on myself internally before I like go to sleep and before I wake up. So that's my form.
That's cool. That's
also like that. I said before, like you're connecting. It's like you're tapping into self. A lot of people always go external to it. They always want to look outside themselves. I don't want to talk about myself. People get in these weird defensive, like kind of like tantrums of thought, and I'm like, wow, like why are you thinking that way? It's kind of weird. So let's get real back to that endocannabinoid system. It deals with 5 important things that no one thinks about. It deals with how you relax, how you eat, how you sleep, how you protect, and how you forget. Now, if you get that right,
how you forget.
Yeah, exactly, right? So you live your day. Why don't you let go of stuff? Why do you have to keep holding on to it?
Oh, that's interesting.
So that deals with, I think, in another conversation I had, is that when people have PTSD, they can't forget it. It stays there. Remember, there's also post-traumatic growth. People don't talk about that. So when you let it go, things can grow.
What is that?
So post-traumatic growth has been the study of people that have PTSD, that if they have the right kind of connection, or let's call it like assistance, you can have huge growth with your experience that you think is just PTSD. No one talks about it because you know why? Our society is mostly negative in the way that we express things. Oh, I got PTSD, or it's like I was thinking about this before I jumped down with you guys. I treated myself, kind of tasked me into I call it like a source. Like I'm like in this source, and people. It's almost like that old term, like going postal, or that person has road rage. Like we get into these like belief systems of society, but when you forget.
So how do you enact that growth instead of the negative side of it?
So breathing always sets you free. Every time you breathe, you can think about whatever occurred. You can breathe. There's certain herbs you can take, and there's a great technique. Different ways to describe it, but it's like when you go to bed at night, go back through your day of what occurred, and it'll clear out your day. It was the first time I heard about it was by an ancient alchemist called Gao Hong, who said, "Hey, if you go back through your day, you never live a day, and you don't age."
Interesting. Now, was it harder for some that had, seen and gone through things to actually go through this process?
It depends, because most people never go back their complete day. As they go back through the process, they'll go on a tangent. For example, like last night I went back to 5th grade. Someone broke my record album. What? Where'd that come from? It literally clears out your mind of things that are inside your system that you have no idea they're even there. It's really cool. It's like a biomodulator.
Okay, so if you're going through your day, this is fascinating to me.
Backwards, so your head hits a pillow. You start going backwards through your day. You might have a tangent. You might be like, man, I saw a beautiful rose. That rose might take you to 18 other thoughts. You just go with it. You'll wake up and you'll be like, man, when I woke up today, wow, I had a great sleep. What happened?
So you let yourself go through the days that it brings you, like those triggers or tangents, like wherever it leads you.
You might be like, hey, I'm in outer space. Who knows what it is? That's what's the beauty of it is, man. So for me, sleep is a huge component of how you regenerate, and it should be a bigger indicator, like traditional medical school, grand rounds. I got 72 hours on. Really? They think that's smart? Like, come on, man. Like, that's really going to help people. Like, I would never want to be treated by someone like that. So our belief in what we thought, I got to be tough to make it through isn't really that good. So sleeping has to be paramount in everything you do. If you sleep better, life is better.
Interesting.
So when I treat people, I have like 10 big questions of all these categories. I'm not just going like, oh, you're coming in for an ankle injury. Okay, how do you sleep? How do you eat? Do you chew your food? How many times? How's your sleeping? All these questions that give you indications.
Interesting. So so Mike, when you go, what have you seen the difference from, because you're real life here.
Remember, he's white-legged.
As we're closing up the interview, I want to know Mike's version of how you feel.
I failed to take advantage until recent times. I go in to get acupuncture for an injury I had on the track, and I lose out on the opportunity until recently. I said, man, you're talking about things I never heard of. We're going to have to create a blog for you so other people over time will come to have chapters that they learn about. So I'm only beginning after 3.5 years of knowing him to learn about all the stuff that occurs besides acupuncture.
So it took like 3.5 years to be, instead of reactive, proactive. That's
a great term. So I love that term, proactive. Right behind me, you can see an ounce of prevention was the pound of cure. So for Mike, though, you know, he comes in, he's on his phone. I'm like, okay, I guess this guy's busy. Most people chill out. It's all good. So each person has their own unique experience of what they're into. It varies. Every person's unique. So that's the beauty of what I do. People come in and it's like, wow. Like, I always tell when a good session occurs. Like Mike comes in, if you had a before and after picture, he'd be so much more relaxed. It's like, wow, look at this guy. And I think what this tells me, I've always talked about doing a book. I need to write a book. So I've had a few ideas about like say 20 principles of just easy health that you can do that will help people out. So one last one is you can just walk backwards, 5 steps forward, 5 steps backwards. It'll help your body proprioception function better, and your senses of hearing, seeing, tasting will get better because of that.
Okay, yeah, it's interesting. Once you told me that, I run backwards some of the time. So you put everything back in. It's amazing. It does work. You run backwards. Oh, I feel better now.
So there are 3 steps that we took away from. Is 1, close your right nostril, breathe 5 times a day, 5 minutes.
Yep, and do that before you go to bed when you wake up.
Okay.
So before you do your backward review, do that. It'll tap you in.
All right. So before the review, then go number 2, guys. Everyone, go through your day backwards from the time you hit the pillow, and let it just go until whenever. And then the 3rd one is 5 steps forwards, 5 steps backwards. How many?
Just be careful you're walking, so you know where you're walking. You don't want to walk like on a cliff or something, or where there's like an area you might fall.
Yeah, but if you're on the track, it works perfect. You look behind you and nobody there, and you can just run backwards.
Well, remember, Mike, your nickname, so you're White Lightning. So people are like, who's that guy that went by me?
We need a little asterisk next to what you give, Mike, because we're not. You're over average. Over average individual.
But everybody is, man. That's what people don't get. No one's normal. Everyone's unique. You got to find your gift and tap in.
It's true. It's true, Dr. Bob. You speak it well. Embrace yourself. Embrace your quirkiness or silliness or whatever it is that's inside you, and just let it evolve out.
You got it.
Yeah, I love it. That is a perfect way to end another episode of East Coast, West Coast. Dr. Bob, thank you so much for joining us. And Mike, I always love seeing you and having you as my co-host. To everybody else out there, till the next time the East and the Coast collide, we will see you. Take care.
Thank you.